All righty, it's 5 o'clock and I'd like to call the May 22nd, 2025 work session of the Staunton City Council to order. I will now entertain a motion to approve the work session and regular meeting agendas.
I move to approve the work session and regular meeting agendas as presented.
Thank you, Councilor Overholtzer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Woods. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Kesker, would you call the roll?
Mr. Overholtzer,
Aye.
Miss Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's good. All righty, tonight on our agenda, we start off with an update on the Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court Facility. Ms. Beauregard.
Well, John Keene's in the audience, and he's going to provide an update of where we are with the core construction. And if you've driven by recently, it's really popping out of the ground. And
Yes, it is.
Looks like a building.
Looks great.
And I know that he and Josh went out and got some great pictures. So, yeah, so I'm gonna let Mr. Keene take it away.
Good evening, Mr. Keene.
Good evening, Mayor Edwards, council members. For those of you who haven't met yet, my name is John Keene. I'm the representative for the city of Staunton on the domestic court building located on West Beverly Street. Stuff you want to hear right up front is the project is on schedule and on budget. All right. So we'll start there. I can't go wrong.
You always start with it. It's always good to hear, though.
Just the next time, if I come in and that's not one of my first sentences, ask questions.
Okay.
Mhm. It is important to remember, however, though, that the site work is weather dependent. So speaking of site work, progress to date, overall progress so far is about 63%.
Wow.
All the underground site utilities are complete. I like the picture, Josh. You see the slide Josh has of now and a year ago?
Oh, wow.
Isn't it something?
It's like it just popped up out of the ground.
Yeah.
Just add water.
Yeah. I wish it was that easy, man.
Sure.
Underground site utilities are complete. That includes the sanitary and domestic water lines, as well as the stormwater system. Thanks to y'all, utility company easements have been obtained. So the contractor can now coordinate directly with Columbia Gas and Dominion Energy to get their service laterals in. Once the service laterals go in, we'll put the base layer of paving down. And final layer of paving will go down to almost the very end of the project when we stripe it. Have to forgive me. I'm a little under the weather and I misplaced my
Oh.
glasses.
Oh, John, do you wear a 2.0, 2 point, whatever?
2.75.
Well,
Glasses.
these will work.
What I did is.
John, there's
I
several of
have
us
them.
that have millions of pairs of these just laying around, so.
See if that works. You look good in red. It matches your shirt.
That's good.
There you go.
I printed this out in a font you can see from space.
And yet.
And yet. Building exterior construction is substantially complete. All the masonry work is done, to include the screen walls and the dumpster enclosure, which we have a picture of a little later on. Wash down of the brick started last week. Front entrance, you can see there in the picture on the right-hand side, there is an opening on the top left that's strictly for material, getting material into the site and out of the site. Or into the building, I should say. Roofing is complete. Composite metal panel should be complete this week. That's what those fellows are working on in the picture on the right-hand side. And then on the building interior, you can see the
Wow.
framing's underway. Framing is substantially complete. We are hanging and finishing drywall already, which is a great thing. So there's some pictures of the overhead utilities that have been put in, duct work, electrical work. Ceiling work is probably about 85% complete. So we haven't done any ceiling grid work yet. That's still a little further down the road, but we are getting to the point where we will have our taps and drops for light fixtures, sprinklers in place. Mechanical and electrical wall rough-ins have been inspected. Sheetrock hanging and framing are underway. Mechanical and electrical rough-ins and ceiling continue. Long lead items such as the generator and the elevators have already been procured. In fact, the elevators showed up this week and are being installed. So right now we have no concerns about any material that might hold up
Wow.
the final product. So Rooftop HVAC units have been set and tied in. Sprinkler system installation, inspection and testing was completed this week. Hydro was conducted by the fire marshal's office. 3 of the 4 stairways are complete. This is a picture of the main stairway, which was the open stairway. You can see the windows on the left-hand side there. That stairway will be glass handrails with powdered aluminum railings, and there's also windows at the top. So here's what the courtroom looks like now. Don't tell Judge Reed, please. But we're getting there. On the right-hand side, you see a door leading back. That's the secure area. That's where all the holding cells are. That's where the sheriff's department's offices are. That's where our IT closets are. All that is complete. Security door frames have been installed. So basically now we're almost to just the finishes portion of the building, which is good. Speaking of finishes, color and finish selections are already complete. They've all been sent to the contractor. Haven't had any return from them as far as any issues in procuring that on time. Furniture and equipment selections are underway. We've had all our meetings, much to my chagrin. With Judge Reed, we've had staff, court services, sheriff's department, CSU, juvenile justice. Everybody's been involved in those meetings. All the furniture has been selected. It should go out to vendors either next week or the week after. The only caveat to that is we'll see what the pricing is first before we buy it, because we have a budget, that we're gonna meet. That would be the only thing that would change those. And I would expect those to be minor changes. The good thing about having everybody involved like we did, it was good to get a consensus, and I think it's going to be a very uniform appearance throughout the courtroom. I think people will really be impressed. So, and again, the project remains under budget.
Wow.
Um,
That is good news.
I'm open to any questions you may have.
Is the building, what can you say about the energy efficiency of the building? Does it have any LEED certification, or can you say anything about?
It is not LEED certified. It is not. So we have 2 rooftop units. So we didn't go with chillers. Got split systems for the IT closets, secure areas, gun storage. So, we do have provisions for future solar for the roof that we've taken up to the 2nd floor electrical room. If it ever came down to when we wanted to spend the money, we just go through the roof and install that system.
Great.
So, anyone else have any questions? Feel free.
Yeah. I guess it's not ready for visitors yet. Tours.
We could probably go out there one time. if
That
you
would be
wanted
cool,
to.
John.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah.
Yeah, because Shockey, the contractor, is very good about, being transparent.
Mhm.
We just have to have personal protective equipment. We could go out. I'll talk to Leslie. We'll see if we can set that up.
Right. And then the parking lot is still kind of, a parking lot. Is that getting a complete?
This is something for you all to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, the parking lot that gets improved is basically 3/4 of the way back and to the courthouse.
Right.
Front part off West Beverly
Front part
Street is
is-
not part of the contract. It calls for nothing to happen there. So we may want to look at ways to repave that.
The contract does include the sidewalk connection out to West Beverly.
It no longer does.
Okay.
Because that's going to be part of the master plan,
Okay.
which is underway now. And we're thinking there's going to be a stormwater feature where the parking lot is on that lower end, and the sidewalk will wend its way up to the building.
Okay.
And we will have a bus call station up at the courthouse.
I'm sorry, John, I'm sorry, Mr. King, where did you say the stormwater feature was going to be in the front?
It's all in the preliminary stages.
All
right
in the
now, but
preliminary
it's-
stages.
But it's going to be in that nasty looking parking lot you were. talking
Yeah.
about.
It's not pretty right now, but
No, it's not pretty at all.
that's,
And there are plans underway, we took the buildings down on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
The wall, as you pull in there, is still pretty rough. We do have plans to build that masonry wall up just to slab height again
right.
and paint it so that when you drive in there, it'll be presentable. We want it to be as pretty as the courthouse is.
We heard a report at EDA that community development is doing some plans that could include some amenities in addition to as part of the drainage feature, some green space potentially. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, a little pocket park there would look really nice. Mm. And would be, I think, good for the West End. Mm.
But for a future conversation, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm.
All righty. Anybody else? Questions for Mr. Keating? Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to get good news like this. I shall. The best that TJ Maxx has to offer.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. All righty. Starting off with good news, moving on to an update on the Staunton Business Retention Survey, Ms. Beauregard.
Yeah, so Jessica Blythe is here this evening. She's the Assistant Director of Economic Development to go through the results with you all and answer any questions.
Excellent. Good evening and welcome, Ms. Blythe.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm excited to share with you guys some data from our survey. So just in total, we had 44 folks participate in the survey across all sectors. And we did feel like we got some good insights from the data that was provided that will help us kind of develop our strategy for the Economic Development Department moving forward. So the data that I'll share with you all tonight both reveals our community strengths and some specific areas where we can better support our business community. So a little bit of background information on the survey. As I mentioned, we had 44 respondents. The survey was open from mid-February to mid-April. We did decide to conduct this primarily online. That's where respondents responded to the survey, but we did a direct mailing campaign, email campaign, and then we partnered with our local partners such as SCCF, the SCDA, the local chamber to also get their support in mailing this out and sharing it in their newsletters, as well as Ms. DeMayo and I reaching out directly to businesses to encourage that participation. So of the 44 respondents, 34% were in offices or professional services, 27% represented retail businesses, 18% in manufacturing, and 11% in hospitality and food service, with 9% in other sectors. Some of these were nonprofits, arts related businesses as well. You'll also see here that small business is the backbone of the businesses that make up our city, with 66% being small businesses. 43% of those businesses are located in our downtown Beverly Street corridor, and the others distributed again along the West End, Stanton Crossing, and throughout the city. So you can also see here, I have the percentage for medium and large size businesses and how we categorized that. Quick key findings. If all you take away from this is these 6 things, that would be fine. So one of the major findings, and one that we're really proud of and we're able to spotlight during Economic Development Week, is that 80% of the businesses surveyed would choose to locate in Staunton again. This is a remarkable endorsement for the city. 79% expect steady or increased sales in the coming year, and 70% report struggles finding qualified workers, which is probably not a surprise to you all. While 57% of those surveyed are familiar with the enterprise zone, only 9% had utilized the incentives related to it. And 84% of those surveys were interested in learning more, participating in our stakeholder meetings, or just, again, getting the resources for how they can participate in the future and other programs as well. So these statistics tell us a story about our community and the businesses that we love, with significant untapped opportunities for the support and growth, which leads us to a little bit of a deeper dive into some of these statistics. So first, I have employment outlook for you all. The employment outlook is encouraging and reflects businesses in Staunton, their confidence. So 32% of the businesses plan to increase their employment over the next year, and 64% will maintain their current staffing. So only 4% of those who were polled expected to decrease employment over the next 12 months. So again, a positive indicator of the business stability and potential growth. As I've attended tab meetings and had discussions with Ms. Johnson, this reflects in the reporting that she is also seeing that there's a positive indicator of growth and that people are kind of feeling like, okay, we're getting our feet back under us. So some of the challenges that are facing our small businesses and all of our businesses relate to workforce. So here we can see that our most pressing challenge is related to hiring difficulty. So on a 10-point scale, the average hiring difficulty rating was a 6.6. 54% rated it a 7 or higher on that 10-point scale, and 16% calling it extremely difficult. The specific challenges paint a clear picture of poor attendance and reliability, which led at 32%, followed by low job skill levels at 30%, poor discipline and work ethic at 27%, an inability to learn and adapt at 20%, drug and alcohol abuse only mentioned by 11% of respondents. So what we are finding is that what businesses need most are communication and customer service skills. So 33% of our respondents highlighted that. Reliability and punctuality came in at 24%, and then basic technical and computer skills, 19% of respondents indicated that. These are foundational skills that workforce development efforts need to address. Through our partnerships and educational stakeholders, we can advocate for that and help with that development as well. So more on business outlook. Despite the workforce challenges, as I shared earlier, business outlook remains positive. So average business outlook score was a 5.8, again on that 10-point scale, which kind of indicates a neutral overall in sales. But 57% said that they would expect an increase in sales. I took that as a 6 or higher on the scale. On the 10-point scale, 22% gave a 5, indicating expecting a steady hold in sales, and 21% indicated a decrease in sales. So combining that optimism with employment growth plans, this will create a strong foundation for economic development initiatives, partnering with these businesses to help maintain this positive outlook. So as I mentioned, that 80% of businesses surveyed would choose Staunton again. They did give some specific reasons, downtown or Beverly Street location being one of the highest brought up reasons, with 36% indicating that, followed by our central location in the Valley. 27% of respondents indicated that as being a positive asset to being in Staunton. The walkability and foot traffic was mentioned by 18% of our respondents, and then accessibility to the highway at 11%. And then also our business community is also valued. The networking opportunities that we have here, 9% of our business community indicated that as a key factor as well. So positives are not without their opposites. So some of the challenges that our businesses mentioned would be the perceived parking difficulties. That's the top of the list with 32%, followed by high costs and taxes at 27%. Some others, though, we heard great walking, limited foot traffic in certain areas, concerns 14% of our businesses. Vacant or empty storefronts was mentioned by 9%, as well as aging demographics. So these also give us an idea of where we can focus and how we can help, and even if it's just educating business owners and having that conversation. So next, we'll talk about our public service ratings. So we did ask respondents to rate our public services. You'll see here again, on the 0 to 5-point scale, fire protection was rated at 4.3, EMS at 4.2, police protection 3.9, Parks and Rec at 3.9 as well. I don't think, again, this is a surprise to any of us. We all feel like we offer strong services there. The lowest rated were our solid waste disposal at 2.7, sewage disposal costs at 2.9. Water costs were also in this area. They were 3.0, which to me, I didn't include on either because I feel like it's right there in the middle. But the airport rating was 2.4. I do believe that this likely reflects the limited awareness or perception that the Shenandoah Valley Regional Airport isn't necessarily a local asset to Staunton, but we certainly feel, and as we're talking about business attraction, that it is an asset to us as the city. So enterprise zone. Several of our questions, because of the work that we'd already started to begin and we're preparing for with the EDA this year, focused on awareness of the enterprise zone as well as utilization. So as I mentioned earlier, 57% of folks were familiar with the enterprise zone, whether that was they'd heard it before, or they were familiar with incentives, but only 9% of respondents had actually utilized the incentives, and 27% didn't know whether their business had utilized the incentives. Those tended to be organizations that had been around longer. So the person responding to the survey may not necessarily be aware. 84% of the stakeholders did indicate positively that they would like to learn more. We actually had a meeting this week with some of those stakeholders. Pam is here. She attended our meeting to talk a little bit more about their input on the proposed amendments that we've discussed with EDA. So again, this kind of tells us that there's a significant opportunity for us to increase the program utilization. I don't have it in this report, but we've shared with EDA that since 2016, which is the last time the enterprise zone was amended, locally, only 2 of our 8 incentives have been utilized. So that shows us that it's time for us to amend those incentives. We were able to use a lot of the feedback from the business survey to kind of target and start to draft some proposals for EDA to consider so that we can address some of these gaps.
Oh, this is a survey, so nobody, wasn't able to ask why they, right? Okay.
And I will say, you know, as we talked with some of our stakeholders, those who did come, and as we've spoken to people and gotten some feedback, a lot of the current incentives are more restrictive, whether it's by creative class. So we'll offer an incentive, but then it's specifically for like architects or certain sectors of work that limited everyone's participation. So a big goal that we had as we're revising those incentives this year is to make sure that we are offering incentives that are incentivizing to majority of our business owners and that can make a difference for different organizations in different ways. Some of our businesses are in leased buildings, and so having a real estate rebate may not be appealing to them. And so facade grants and other opportunities may be more appealing. So we're trying to find that balance between attracting big business, big industry, but also taking care of the small businesses, which, as we saw, represent a huge chunk of our business in Staunton. So the data, business support. Our business support analysis revealed that clear communication and accessibility challenges were present. Nearly half of businesses hadn't utilized any business assistance programs, while 25% had used COVID-related assistance and 16% used local resources like SCCF and the chamber programs. Many reported uncertainty about what programs are available. We're really excited to have our new website because we feel like this will be an opportunity for us to have a hub for businesses to be aware of what we are offering, but also going through an amendment process with the enterprise zone allows us to kind of launch that campaign and make everyone aware. As we spoke at our stakeholders group this week, we talked about the importance of that education, educating our business owners, but also educating those that they interact with, like our CPAs and our commercial real estate agents as well. So I mentioned the overall lack of awareness. This will help us kind of guide not only our enterprise zone work, but a larger strategic plan as well for our department. So some key points of what we learned. We learned that multiple touch points are required beyond a formal survey. Different sectors have different communication preferences, whether they want to do a survey or whether they'd rather sit with us face to face and have that conversation. Also noting that relationship-based approach yields better participation. So the more that we can have and foster those relationships, the more participation we can expect. a lot of our takeaways came from the qualitative, the open-ended questions that we were asking, and that gives us those actionable insights of what our programming and our initiative should really look like. We also took away that many of our businesses want to engage, but they need to know what those options are. They need to be flexible and they need to be informed. So a couple of steps of where we go from here. I already mentioned the enterprise zone. So we'll continue to engage in that amending process, working with the EDA and our stakeholders to align those incentives better with the community needs. We'll also develop a strategic plan for our department, hoping to look again at those gaps that were identified and create programs and initiatives to address those. Working with our partner agencies like SCCF, STDA, the chamber to make sure that we're improving interagency communication, but also limiting the duplication of efforts and establishing clear roles. And then, as I mentioned, that communication piece and education piece is key, that once we've established that and had those internal conversations, businesses are also aware of those things. And then the last thing is to create community, a strong community for our small businesses. As I mentioned, the website, we believe that we will be able to create a presence there for not only attracting big business, but to have our small businesses have a place where they can turn for those resources, know that they're there, and that Amanda and I's doors are always open for their assistance. That is the information that I've prepared for you all this evening. Also, just want to say thank you to all of our businesses that did participate in the survey. The feedback that we got, like I said, invaluable to our work and helping us shape what the next year and beyond looks like for us. But happy to take any questions that anyone may have.
You talked about the need for coordination. I happened to go to a West End Business Association meeting recently, and they're about to launch
Their survey. Yes, I've seen it.
So it's a lot of work to
Yeah.
conduct a survey, to get the response, to analyze the responses. Maybe some coordination before you launch yours to incorporate the questions and the things that they have in theirs. To
And we
save them some work, make a case for that.
I spoke with Councilmember Campbell about that a little bit. He had shared the survey with us as well as Mr. Rhodes. And we had reached out to try to get engagement from them, and everyone's busy. We didn't get a direct response, but I agree. I think prioritizing those relationships and those partnerships and working smarter and not harder for everyone, because I think survey fatigue is also a real thing.
Absolutely.
So if we can work together and talk about what gaps in knowledge do we have in it and in data sets, and then work together to develop one survey or a way that we go about interacting with businesses and can share that information that we garner is going to be really important.
Follow-up is really important too. I always think that demonstrating that you're listening, that you're going to use the
Yes,
responses.
actionable. Yes.
Actionable, right?
Yeah.
Will build trust and build the participation in future surveys.
I agree. I think if Amanda's learned anything about me in my 5 months of being here, it's that strategy and accountability are two of my favorite words. And so I think, as you're saying, I think it's one thing to put the survey out and we can just leave it on a shelf and not do anything with it. But for me, it's really important that we make these things actionable and that we are coming back, communicating to our business community and saying, this is what we're going to do about it. Which is why I really wanted to end the slide with like, okay, here's where we go next. Like, this isn't just information that I'm spouting out to you, but how are we planning to use this to guide the next 90 days of the work that Amanda and I are doing? And then from there, creating that strategic plan that will guide us for years to come.
And I would just encourage you to keep the outreach going through the process. Just if you continue the engagement, the strategic plan, the changes to the enterprise zones, I think there'll be a greater sense of, they were a part of the process and more, that will increase awareness as well.
Yeah, I think ownership is huge, right? So if people feel like, one, we're meeting them where they're at. So we've learned our lessons with surveys and how to improve that in the future, but keeping them invested and engaged, even when it can be a struggle, and keeping them apprised to what's happening, even if they weren't in the room. Hey, these were the conversations, so that they can have those questions, ask those questions, and still feel informed.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I just wondered if you would be sharing this information with the other economic development departments in the area with Waynesboro, Augusta County.
I certainly can, and I think it comes up in a
Mhm.
lot of our conversations. I'll say when it comes to workforce challenges.
Yeah, that's
It's
what
not
I
a
was
surprise,
thinking. I'm like,
right?
yeah, I know.
And so we've already
It's a
talked
challenge.
with, we're on a couple of different advisory boards and had those conversations when early results were coming in of like,
Yeah.
this is what we're seeing,
Yes.
which echoes and reflects a lot of what all of the organizations are seeing. But I think it goes back to that point of how can we all work together to have a bigger impact versus all working really hard separately? Because again, I don't think what we're seeing is unique to Staunton, especially regionally. I think there's a lot of overlap, working with VCTC to talk about some of that workforce development, looking at curriculum and seeing how schools can maybe lean into it at the onsite versus remotely. It's deep.
I know. I'm a
There's a
former
lot
high
of
school
places we can
teacher.
go
I'm
with
like
it.
looking at this and I'm like, yeah, I was a high school teacher. This is exactly what the
Yeah.
problem is.
So,
And,
happy to be able to like have these results and have them in a
Yeah.
format
Yeah.
to share. And then, we did launch the survey under an anonymous response.
Right,
So can
right.
give
Oh,
some
yeah.
of those qualitative answers to you all without connecting them to
Sure,
businesses.
Of course, yeah.
But I think the big takeaways with workforce being a large challenge, not being a surprise to anyone, housing also being one of those challenges, and those two tie so closely
Yeah.
together. I know we'll talk a little bit more about that in regular session, but certainly nice to have the compass to guide our work.
Thank you so much,
You're
Ms. Blythe. Does
welcome.
anyone have any questions before? We say
Yeah,
goodbye?
just one
Sure.
question. I noticed you used the word perceived parking disadvantages, and I like the use of that word.
Thanks.
In my long life in Staunton, and I lived in downtown Staunton and spent time in downtown Staunton, and in 37 years, I've yet to not find a parking place in downtown Staunton, and that includes coming to the Christmas parade.
Mhm.
So are the parking disadvantages, are they because business patrons are not able to find parking places, or because business owners are not able to find parking places?
So we didn't really get down, we didn't ask follow-up questions on that, but I think between the wharf stakeholder with group that we've had in the last couple of weeks, I guess about a month ago, where we invited the businesses surrounding the wharf because of what is going on there to have those conversations. Parking came up again, and we try to be consistent in saying, it's a perceived parking issue. There's a lot of parking, and with the court moving out, we don't know too what impact that's going to have.
Right.
I think as we go throughout this year, it's something that we can continue to ask businesses. I also think some businesses, like restaurants, for instance, perceive that their clientele want to park really close and just walk right in. I think there are a lot of businesses that would echo some of that. But depending on what your stay time is in downtown, you're probably more willing to walk from your parking location to where or what you're doing. So I think there are a lot of questions around parking, and some work that we can do together as a community to kind of educate on what the parking options are. We have already, out of that wharf stakeholder group, put a parking flyer in the visitor center that outlines how parking at the wharf has changed, specifically where the new entrances are and that it is free for the time being. And then also highlighted other parking opportunities within the city, highlighting that the garages are free after 5:30 and on the weekends. So again, going back to that education piece being key, we've got to make sure that the information is accessible to everyone. And then from there, we can kind of, again, look and assess. So we have made those available in the visitor center. I emailed it out to the wharf patrons. Darren at STDA will also have it so he can send it to folks who are downtown, and offering to bring some of those flyers to those business locations as well.
Well, I can tell you that I received several emails and some phone calls thanking the city for doing what you're doing. and appreciating that you're listening and
Yeah.
trying to figure out solutions to what's
Takes-
going on.
Takes
So
a team, and our business owners and folks who are downtown stakeholders are part of our team. And so making sure that we can get their feedback and use it to shape our work is really important.
let's appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
You got it.
Thank you for being here. And thank you, Ms. Demille. All righty, a little early, so we're going to move right along. We have an update on tourism marketing plan and activities. Ms. Beauregard.
Samantha Johnson, our tourism director, is here this evening to provide an update and answer any questions. And Madam Mayor,
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
not actually, if you notice on the agenda,
Oh.
I actually accidentally scheduled 15 minutes to
Okay.
approve the agenda, which was a mistake. So we're, yeah, and it should have been 5:05.
I noticed that, yeah.
So I'm
but
like, how
okay.
are we so far ahead? That's
Yeah.
how, because I made a mistake.
Okay,
So
we
we're
are
fine.
not,
So
you
we
have
mi- you
no
might
more
have
time.
a-
try and keep us on
Might
track.
have an extra
I
long
will
dinner
try.
tonight, so.
We'll see how it
great. Okay, you have
apologies.
exactly 15 minutes.
Starting now. All right. Well, good evening, counselors. And
Mhm.
Pam, thank you for holding the fort down out there. Appreciate you. So I just wanted to take a few minutes this evening and share some of our new campaign and marketing updates that we have, because I know often there's not a very large portion of our budget that goes into local advertising, and that's because our job is to attract new visitors, typically from beyond that 50-mile radius. So just want to share a little bit for you guys, and just overall kind of a recap. So our mission is to promote the city of Staunton as a tourism destination through integrated marketing, advertising, and public relations. You can see a snapshot of our budget for this past year. Also, our amazing team there, including our visitor center staff that just keeps us going so well. And this is from 2023 data, but I do want to land on this because it drives home what our role is. We often get designated as the fun group, and we are, right? But our job is to share not only the great things happening in Staunton, but to bring a new and a good and a dollar that goes even further. So we're still waiting on our 2024 data, but looking at 2023, which we anticipate to be even higher, travel spending in 23 in Staunton alone, this is just the city of Staunton, was over $79 million. If you compare this to what our budget is, that means for every dollar we spent in our department, we had $109 return. That's like a nearly 11,000% ROI. So I just want to draw that out, because that's the power of tourism, and that's the power of it in our town of 25,000 people. So
Well, how do you know
little
that?
brag.
79 million in traveler spending? How-
Yeah,
how
so
do you know
this
that?
is generated through Virginia Tourism Corporation. So I don't remember the department, but they always outsource their economic driving forces. And so basically they take all the collection of taxes spent, general spending from all the different sectors, primarily restaurants, lodging, that include hotels, short-term rentals. They also do business sales, and then they split it up between data that they have from mobile and location as well. So I don't know their full algorithm. They don't always share it, but this is from Virginia Tourism. Yes, thank you for
Thank you.
asking that.
And they can also tell by the credit card address, right?
Yes, and
zip
we'll touch
code.
on a little
Yeah.
bit of that, so what it looks locally as well. Just a small recap, these numbers are actually slightly higher, but just a cap of what our partners and our teammates out there are doing. And so speaking of those numbers, so internally, we partner with a company called Zartico. That's what basically captures the mobile and the credit card spending. It is not a head count, but it does give us a snapshot of visitation within Staunton. So it doesn't track within a 50-mile radius, so it just captures true visitors. So looking at 2024, we saw a 6% increase in visitor devices. We also saw an increase in overall spending. 24% of spending on our local businesses were from visitors. Could you imagine what our economic standpoint would be without 24% of their business gone? An interesting note on that, though, is spending locally was equal to the previous year. So what we saw, and also in just a second, we compare it to hotels. So while we saw an increase, and the reason am I sharing all this before we go, we will share the fun creatives, but I want to share the strategy behind why we placed things where we did. So even though we saw an increase in visitation, overall our occupancy, similar to the full state of Virginia, was down about 6.3% in 2024. It was also down in 2023. So we know very well the longer people stay, the more they spend. You get them for 1 night, 2 night, that turns into optical tourism. Okay. So what we knew is when we looked at our marketing plan, how do we drive further overnight visitation versus just those quick trips? So longer trips, more dedicated trips with heavier planning. So we took a step back. We also looked at our Zydeco data from 2024 to see who is our visitor now. So some pretty interesting findings. Ms. Blythe, she mentioned some challenges that businesses face is an aging demographic. The same is true for us. While an older population is certainly our bread and butter, we also know that we need to think of the long-term plan and how do we continue attracting new and younger generations. So we are happy that 52% is now in that 25 to 54-year-old range. 41% is a household income of a little over 100,000. And something that really struck us was this 37% have children in household. And so we had to take a step back because we're not an amusement park attraction, but we do see families out with us every day. If there's families that live here, because the motto is true, a good place to live is a good place to work, is a good place to visit. We know families are living here and they're loving it. So we had to take a step back and say, you know what? We don't have the big amusement park. We don't have the beach, but we're still a place that families can come. So how do we do that authentically? And also realistically, we're not going to overpromise the experience. So really looking in, okay, what type of experience within historical, culturally can families have that are engaging? So as we started drilling in, because while we have a great return at the end of the day, budgets are budgets. So how do we be a really good stewardess of our tax dollars and get them to the place that can cause the most return? So this is a snapshot basically of our top visitation markets. Again, that's not a head count. Those are just sample sizes of last year. Our top 4 markets for the most part, you'll see there, DC, Roanoke, Richmond, those pretty much stay the same. Some will shift one over the other here and there. We're going to continue driving into those. There are top feeder sources, our closest drive markets. We're going to continue investing in those. But what we are really interested in when launching this new campaign is what's happening in those bottom 6 feeder markets. And so really, to be honest, New York's great. It's a little expensive for us to break into in a very strategic way. So really it came down to Philadelphia and Charlotte. Both are emerging really strong for us. Baltimore as well. I know it's number 9, but Baltimore's been really steady. But Philadelphia and Charlotte, they both show about the same spending, about the same visitation. But what we found when we looked further into our data is Charlotte is more likely to spend on overnight accommodations, and they're also more likely to stay 1 to 2 nights longer. So that basically drove our decision in when we were placing our next campaign. So going into creative.
Do you have any insight into visitors from overseas?
No, unfortunately. So our data with Zydeco is domestic only. There's been some really nice communication that has opened up with Virginia Tourism. So I've been to Richmond the last 2 months to meet with some of their international sales team. We could talk a while about this if you want. So we are leaning on them, but also our local attractions because we have basically no way to capture them, but our attractions that have ticketing services do. So I can tell you last Saturday alone, Woodrow Wilson birthplace, they had visitors from Australia. They had 2 separate groups that weren't together from the UK. They had a group from France that came in. That's a Saturday alone. So we are leaning on them, especially Woodrow Wilson, Frontier, American Shakespeare, because they have the ticket base that can give us insight, and then also Virginia Tourism to what they're seeing. They are about to restart paid advertising in Canada, and then they will also be opening up international co-ops for the first time that will allow us to have a little leverage. We did just host last week a familiarization tour with travel agents from the UK. So Virginia Tourism and Brand USA, which is the tourism office for US, they reached out to us and said, hey, can we had them only for about 20 hours, but we made the most of it. So we had a good time with them. So that was really interesting insight, talking to them directly of what are you seeing a little bit. So we're leaning on our partners a lot for that.
Long term, I think that's definitely a good investment to attract overseas visitors. Short term, there are definite challenges nationally, I think,
Sure.
with overseas visitors down in most markets. But Just an awareness, good awareness point.
Yeah, because it's happening already. We can talk to our partners and see that they're coming, and there's a lot of things we can look at about why they are and what they're doing, but definitely Canada and the UK seem to be our strongest points right now if we were to branch in a little bit more strategically. But yeah, we're leaning on them for the data right now. Thank you. So looking at our new campaign, so our most recent campaign, if you've seen it, was Make New Memories. And this campaign was a little bit interesting to bring out. There had if you remember my presentation at the end of last year, it was a different campaign that we were leaning into. So we had to make a couple changes before we went out into the market. Once we took a deeper dive into what some other statewide campaigns that were happening that we didn't want to clash with or potentially lose SEO on. And so we took a step back. We had our content already, and so we decided to listen a little bit more and just kind of hear what's a common thread and a common theme coming out of people before we lean into a campaign. And what was really interesting, and if anybody has seen any episodes of our podcast, that was kind of the first place we saw it. So one, it helps that we have about 30,000 wizards that visit us every September. So there's one aspect, right? But it was so interesting because when we started talking to people, like, how in the world is Virginia's only scenic train excursion in a town of 25,000? How is it that the world's first recreation of Shakespeare's Blackfriars is in Staunton? How is it that a birthplace is here, but that you can also go year round, that creates experiences for international travelers, that you have this, and this? And I'm not even kidding. Over 60% of the people that I interviewed, without any prompting, their response was some iteration of, I don't know, it's magic, or it feels like magic here. That was from the artists to the developers to the directors. That was a common thread. And so we were like, it does. And so we just try to take a look back of what can encapsulate the big moments, right? Those big attractions, once in a lifetime type deals you can experience. But what is it also about walking through a downtown that is so historic, that has half a dozen bookstores and 3 galleries and people that you can just say hello to at any time? And so that's why we leaned into the concept of Made of Magic. And what was so gratifying is the day we finished this graphic to get it on there, we landed on the tagline for it. That evening, we had sent it off to our agency, and that evening, I saw somebody share a social media post, and I don't know them personally, but she just shared this beautiful story of the day of how they planned to just come out and have dinner, and then they realized that there was a show going on at Blackfriars, and she's like, I haven't been to Blackfriars since I was in middle school. And she and her boyfriend went for a date. They had dinner at Accordia. At the end, they went and had ice cream at Split Banana. And at the main end, she said, I don't know, life here just feels really magical right now. And I went, yes! So
Wow.
it just encapsulated it well. So that was our goal with this, is how do we encapsulate the big moments, but also the real moments that are also attainable for every visitor. So I'm going to show you our 30-second commercial that we are running right now. Do I click a button?
There.
Okay, thank you.
Staunton, Virginia isn't just a place, it's a living storybook. Here, history whispers. Golden light spills across the Shenandoah Valley. Stories come alive. Everyday moments feel like a special kind of magic made just for you. And classic feels brand new. Discover the magic made in Staunton, Virginia at visitstaunton.com.
So here's a little bit of our 30. We also have a 15-second running. And where these are running, we are running broadcast on WCNC, which is Charlotte's highest viewership rating station in the Charlotte market. So we are putting a small budget into their broadcast. We are also running OTT, which is basically internet streaming services. So your Hulu, your Disney, that's all OTT. So we are running that also in Charlotte, but also our strongest target markets. So still Northern Virginia, DC. So we're getting a little broad. We did make the decision to get less viewership to go on premium streaming services. So you can get a lot of impressions, but if it's a lot times they will disperse it on like the free streaming services, which is fine. But we knew what our target was, so we chose to take less impressions to get to where more decisions are being made, if that makes sense. And then we're also running on Hulu and Disney as well, and targeting those personas that we're looking for in this video. So overall, the video sites that we will do between now and June 30, we should have just right at 2 million impressions on those through the end of this fiscal year. Our video on YouTube has already had almost 25,000 views, which is exciting that people are
Very
engaging
exciting.
with it.
Stanton
Woo, we're back. All right, we're also doing a little bit of in-market messaging in the Charlotte market. So I was able to chat on Charlotte today and visit some of them. We also did a page takeover on their site. So this is some of the ad work on there. And then we are finalizing the plans, but we're hoping to collaborate with some of our local art organizations, so whether it be Shakespeare or some others, our music institutes, to do a almost internal co-op and some of the playbill distributions in theaters or music performances in Charlotte. It's interesting, we're both Queen cities, so a lot of overlap there. These are also, I just want to share these. So we are still running our general digital ads with general interest. The majority of our advertising budget goes into digital. It's just the world we're in right now. But we are also doing a bit of a test, and I've been upfront that this campaign is a test in many ways into Charlotte, into the family model. We're testing it out to see what sticks and where we need to keep going. So overall, our job in all of our marketing is basically to go from inspiration to education, right? Getting them to our site to see what they like, to action, to actually booking it. So as we're testing, we're basically also testing to see what are the key draws that are hitting the target market. So these are some genre splits basically that we're running specifically in that Charlotte market. So we have one sector that's going after food, we have one sector that's going after art, and then we have one sector going after history. So at the end of June, we need about 3 months to be able to really get an idea of it, 3 to 4 months. We'll take a step back and kind of look at that and see where we need to pivot and dive heavier into and adjust our creatives from there. We're also still going into social influencers and content creators. So we just wrapped up our third social content creator in Staunton for this fiscal year. So these are 2 of them. So Shonda was from the Charlotte area. That was great to have her in. We also made sure that the airport was a part of that the verbal recognition was there, also in writing, that it could be a drive market 4 hours or it could be a direct fly market an hour. So we had her perspective, and then we also had Taylor there on the other side. She was from the DC market. Destination storytelling, we're still leaning into this as well. So we have many of the world's best attractions, but our greatest attraction, you will hear over and over, and it sounds cliche, but it's true, is our people. And so their stories are some of the most captivating. And so this has been a really fun project. The U is silent, we aren't. It was supposed to start out 8 episodes. We are going to wrap season 1 at 12 episodes. The hardest part was narrowing down who we can fit in the 3rd season. So we just released our 7th episode on Tuesday. So far, these episodes, we've had over 3,000 listens, which has been pretty exciting. Those are pure listens and not impressions. And then, so I think we will be back with a season 2. We'll take a little break and then we'll come on back in that. Also, not our own doing, Virginia Living is going to be doing just a small spotlight on the podcast, which is cool. We didn't even pitch that. Yeah. Also, just some internal storytelling that we continue to do. Hope everybody keeps up with it. So Staunton on Tap, this goes out every week, Thursday to Thursday. It's one of our biggest tools that we have for our frontline workers. It's basically a snapshot of here's all the events you can go to and things you can do, quick snapshot. And then also our weekly blogs. This will be moving to bi-weekly once we get into the new fiscal year. But if you aren't already, I encourage everybody to sign up for our e-newsletter that goes out just to keep you updated and to see what we're focusing on. I think that's the majority. Oh, not on here for the sake of time, but of course we are still running our print ads. Print comes down a little bit compared to digital and other things, but we are still running our print ads, and we're also having great success from a PR and public relations standpoint. We have made so many wonderful national publications in the last year. We just made the list with Travel and Leisure, which is one of the top tourism national publications. So we just ranked number 8 as top places to live in Virginia with Travel and Leisure. So that was exciting. That came out just a couple weeks ago. So still running true with that, but we didn't have time to put it in here. Any questions?
Great job.
all the things.
That was a lot. No, but
Sorry, guys.
did you always know you were going to do a podcast? You look so natural when you're interviewing these folks.
No,
Like, you've
that's
been
what's
doing it
funny
forever.
is, I think I was in EDA earlier, somebody asked, it was supposed to start as, a special for Valentine's Day. So we were going to interview 3 couples for Valentine's Day and to do like a fun video, and then all of their schedule, no schedule lined up anywhere. And so we were going to pivot and just keep one of the couples and then build out the idea around it. And unfortunately that couple still wasn't able to join us. So we pivot and then pivot one more. So no, it was just, we liked the idea of when we were talking to those 3 couples, we're like, man, these stories are good. And then you just over time just talk to people in general. I'm like, we got to get this on camera. And so really that's, I will commend our team tremendously. They are the experts at pivoting. Amazingly. Yeah.
Congratulations.
And I will also give a shout out. So we partner with Nomad Media for that podcast. He's
okay.
Kyle Head. He's a local guy that came back a couple years ago and started his videography company. So he makes us look good.
Yeah. It's very atmospheric.
Ah, thank
Yeah,
you.
enjoy it.
Thank you.
Any more questions before we say good evening?
Is it, the Zydeco data, is it a reasonable, is my inference correct that visitors compared to the previous year are flat? But the spending of each of those visitors is up. They're spending more.
So visitation is up. I think we had an increase of about 6% is what it will likely look like based on their devices, basically, of how many devices we are picking. But when we looked at, so their spending was up, also things were more expensive. Visitation was up, but then hotel occupancy was down.
Right.
And I will be upfront that the STAR report, which is where we get our hotel occupancy, it probably is slightly skewed because it is hotel properties only. We know we have nearly 100 properties of short-term rentals in Staunton. We are looking this year at incorporating a data provider to help us basically get a better track of short-term rentals. So we also know there's just more, there's more opportunity for people to stay elsewhere. So it is slightly skewed on that drop, I think, but it also, I think, was what we were seeing statewide is that people were going very, very short times, or they were going for specific reasons versus a long weekend. They were going to see their family on one weekend or to fit in what they could on a Friday through Sunday or Sunday versus let's add that Thursday on, or let's stay till Monday. So that's really where we're looking right now. So we are happy so far in 2025, this calendar year. Overnight occupancy is up nearly 5% in 2025. So we are excited about that. Our target, in addition to leisure, is also to elevate weekday travel. That's an area that we're trying to amp that up too. Yeah.
Terrific.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you so much. Anyway. All righty. It is 6 o'clock. Up to item 5, we are up to a presentation on Adopt a Spot program. Ms. Beauregard.
Willa Hughes, the Environmental Programs Administrator, will present this program. And this was a follow-up to a conversation we had not that long ago about reinstating this or actually making an active program. And so Ms. Hughes and Mr. Irvin have come up with some, with a plan to do that.
Excellent.
And so I'll let her walk through that and answer any questions.
All righty. Good evening and welcome, Ms. Hughes.
Evening, everyone. So yeah, I'm here today to give a quick presentation on a new program, Adopt a Spot, which formally it will be a new program, but like Ms. Beauregard said, it is really a revitalization of 2 programs that we've had in the past, but they've become sort of passive in recent years. So the first of those programs was our Adopt a Street. And that was previously being administered by Public Works. And I think really it just didn't garner much interest in years and it kind of fell off the radar. Second program is our Adopt a Stream, which is still an active program. We have an application that lives on our website. And that one is administered by the Environmental Programs Division. But we've only had one portion of a stream formally adopted in at least the last 5 years. So it's also not really a fully active program. To despite being separate programs that were administered by separate departments, they're essentially the same thing. They have the same purpose to encourage citizen participation in beautification and litter cleanup of designated areas in the community. They were being run the same way. When I reviewed their applications, they were almost identical. So internally, we decided it would probably be easiest if we just combined them and had one program run by one department. So that led to the birth of the Adopt a Spot program. It will be completely administered by the Environmental Programs Division, but Public Works will designate one staff member for us who will help coordinate traffic signage, safety vests, anything like that that is needed. So the full agreement is in the agenda packet today for this new combined program. Beyond wording changes to combine the programs, there were only a couple things that were changed. So in the interest of time, I'll just go over the highlights of the program as a whole and the changes made to this application, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions. So with the new program, a group can use this one application to adopt a portion of a stream, a street, a neighborhood, a parking lot, and any approved public space. So adoptions will have to be approved by the city, and we can deny for any reason. That would probably be more like a safety issue if we thought a street may not be a safe place to have people out picking up trash. They have to adhere to all the rules in that agreement, and they must sign an attached liability release waiver. And one thing we did find that was different between the two previous programs was the number of required cleanups per year and how long their adoption period must last. We decided to go with 2 years for the adoption period and 4 cleanups per year. In return for signing up for this program, groups will then have 2 signs printed with their name on them, one for each end of their adopted area. And the city will cover the cost of printing these signs, which was a contributing factor in determining the length of the adoption period. If we're going to print the signs, we just want to make sure the group's committed to a decent adoption period. The final change that was made, pretty much everything else was left the same. Participants now need to dispose of their own trash. This was a request by Public Works with all the changes to the trash collection system right now. They just can't handle additional responsibilities. Also looking more long-term, these groups are probably going to hold their cleanups on the weekends, and the trash staff does not work on the weekends. So we don't want to have that expectation of them. We do recognize there might be some issues or hesitations for groups with this new rule. We're working through some other solutions internally, but for right now, they'll have to just dispose of it themselves. So the last thing, this program will launch next week. We'll just put it on the website. Groups can pretty much sign up immediately as they'd like, and part of trying to make it more active, we'll do some probably Facebook publication and try to advertise the program a little more heavily. So I think that's it. If anyone else has any questions.
Yeah, I really appreciate your follow-up and working out the issues with the coordination of different departments and what's actually doable and sustainable by the city. I know that it's important to keep those considerations in mind.
Absolutely, yes.
The change to the program participants are now responsible for trash disposal. It is a significant change. So appreciated any effort to sort of be flexible and creative. You know, could include if they don't have trucks to be able to haul it out to the landfill, if somebody had it at their residence, maybe they could get sort of a pass from Public Works on their regular pickup to collect all the additional bags in addition to the one authorized, can.
Right. And we do have some ideas like that. I haven't had the chance to talk to Dave Urban yet. He's out this week, but we want to go ahead and launch, and next week
I think that's great.
Yeah, I'll get with them and go over, and I'll be the main contact for this program. So if someone called and they found something huge and they on a case by case basis want some help, we can work through those kind of things. We just want the general consensus right now to be that they need to dispose of it themselves.
Would the
There-
outcomes for this program count toward compliance with Virginia's clean water requirements?
It will be something we can report in our MS4 program. It's in there already, but we've really been reporting 0 for Adopt a Street in most years. And currently, we only report the Clean the Bay Day activities for Adopt a Stream. So it'll look good for the MS4 report that we have more to report there.
All right, there are no more questions. Thank you so much, Ms. Hughes, for
Thank
your
you.
presentation.
Thank you.
And for your work on this. All righty, moving on to our last item. This is a discussion of city council contingency funds. Ms. Bogard.
Back on schedule too.
We are magically on schedule.
So this is a
Magically on schedule.
continu-
Mhm.
This is a continuation of a discussion you all had during the FY 26 budget process, where we talked about the $50,000 is in the budget right now. And remember, when as part of a budget balancing, we did not provide another 50,000 in FY 26. So this 50,000 is the 50,000 that's available. You all had talked about ways to allocate those funds out. You had talked about using those to pay, to give some to outside agencies. So wanted to continue that discussion because if there's something you'd like to do before the end of the fiscal year, then we have one more meeting between now and then to kind of take care of that, or this will carry over into fiscal year 26. And it would be available for you all to make a decision down the road.
Right.
So that's kind of where we are. So I wanted to put it in front of you so you all could talk about it. I don't, and see if you have any agreement or to kind of come back to it at a later date.
So
Are you
when would-
all, I'm sorry,
If
guys.
we decide on any funding today, when would it go out to any of the organizations that we designate?
So we could put this on, you want to come up here? Yeah. So, we could put this on the agenda for, so the fund's already appropriated. So they
Yeah.
just need to be allocated out, or you need to
Right.
tell us where the funds should be spent. And that could be taken care of.
We write checks every Thursday.
Yeah, okay. Should we write checks every Thursday? She says, but we probably
Okay,
want some formal action and we could do that at the next meeting on June 26th. And then we could take care of it immediately after that. But we'd want a formal action at the next meeting.
I know we had talked about the warm shelter. We would like to designate some going to the warm shelter. So how much we have to decide? How much of that is going to go to the warm? Other organizations?
And when you say the warm, that would be if they were to be the agency doing the day shelter or
Yes.
for the day, for the
For the
day.
day shelter.
So Warm had requested $26,250 just for general operations of the agency. It wasn't necessarily for the particular
Right.
initiative you're talking about, Mayor,
Right.
but just their general operations.
And that was not approved.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So this would be specifically for them, but it would not be a recurring, this would be a sort of a seed fund because we would not have this money again. And sort of to get something started. And then next year they could apply like every other nonprofit applies for, for operating funds.
Right. And you would just have to make
as
a
any agency
decision.
does,
Mhm.
yeah. I was thinking of that money of that as sort of because it wouldn't be there for next year, as a seed fund to get it started, to help them with furniture, renovation of the space and get it started. And would not likely start until the middle of August, so it's not necessary at this moment, but if we could just
Specify that this.
specify that it is for a day shelter. And then maybe come back. When I just want to see something signed on paper which it's going to happen, but I want to see that signed on paper.
So if I hear you correctly, the $50,000, nothing would be done right now. It would just be held carried over until such time that that is ready to move forward? I mean, you're not,
Well, I was
right?
thinking, so an idea, and I think it was you, Counselor Campbell, who floated this idea, is that 30,000 might go to establishing a day shelter, our participation, the city's participation in establishing a day center. And then remaining 20,000 would be divided amongst the four organizations that applied for funding that were not in Staunton, that did not receive funding.
Actually, it was 6.
It was 6.
well, don't
Well-
count Arcadia because they're on the
Okay.
agenda for tonight. So you can take that off the list. So it's New Directions, Warm, Arrow Project, Small Shenandoah Valley Small Business Development, and YMCA.
Has anyone had any follow-up with any of these agencies since the request, just to see if things have changed or what?
No,
Any
we've not,
updates?
I haven't followed up with them.
I let them know that they did not receive funding in the FY 26 budget process.
They haven't been in touch with anybody on staff following that email.
Might be good for, if not staff, we as a collective do some outreach just to see, reconfirm what the needs are and if this plan would, it's not going to be all they requested, but if it would make a difference in their budget.
Were there any in that group that you just are, Ms. Beauregard just listed, that you're feeling like you would want to approve at a following meeting, or that you're leaning toward, or not wanting to necessarily allocate funds to at this time? So it was New Directions, and I would take Warm out of that, because if it's going, I would
Yeah,
take
I
them
think
out
so
of that
too.
list, because we would be setting it aside. So that would
But again,
be,
but again, what we would set aside for that is seed money. That would be above and beyond Warm's current operations, right? So that doesn't really, I'm just saying that doesn't really address what their request is for.
No.
Yes.
because that's
That's
operating,
correct.
right, that's operating.
Yeah, because this is different than
Right.
what.
So let me just say, so so we're talking about New Directions, Warm, the
Arrow Project.
Arrow Project, right?
Shenandoah Valley Small Business Development, and the YMCA.
Okay, and the YMCA. So those were 5. Are you all thinking that you want to reach out to any of these specifically?
I mean, I think it would be good if we did some due diligence before.
Yeah.
I
making a
think it'd be
decision.
wise to do so.
Yeah.
Leslie, I'm sorry to do this, but could we bring this back to?
Absolutely. Oh, no.
Another work session.
No apology necessary.
Yeah, that
no,
would be, yeah. I
no,
mean,
absolutely.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I really did want to advocate for some of this to go directly toward the establishment
it's-
of a day shelter.
Yeah.
And I'm,
I'd like to.
I mean, I'm good with that
Right.
plan, just.
So that would leave,
I support that generally, but is there a proposal that outlines how, when the money would be spent? These are applications that came in that asking for city support, but I haven't seen a document that actually lays out the need for funds for the, for the warm shelter.
So we can provide that to you all. I mean, if
Okay.
it would be helpful for us to kind of summarize the applications to the
Great.
best of our ability.
yeah,
We can do that in the next week or something. and-
Great.
Yeah. So when you
Great.
make the phone calls, then you'll have that information in front of you.
that's
Yep.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, no
If you
problem.
could send those 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be very helpful.
Oh, for the warm, you did say operating costs.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with the day shelter that you
Right.
all have been talking about. This is just their operations, but we'll send you information from their applications as far as what they were specifically asking for, what programming they were going to do with the funds.
Right. All righty, that's
Does that
really
help?
helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we can bring that back to a future meeting. Make those decisions and then so,
Anytime.
all righty. Anything else, Ms. Counselor Woods?
So what actually is the Shenandoah Valley Small Business Development?
The people left.
Oh,
Well, I just remember when we discussed that originally, Ms. DeMayo saying that she wanted to do a little more research into that organization.
Yeah, I think this was also a new request. We hadn't funded them previously, so we'll get information on
Okay,
that. I just can't
okay.
remember off the top of my head, and
okay,
our people that know left, so
okay,
Okay,
we'll get that out
yeah,
there.
great.
okay.
Well, that was fairly easy.
Yep.
We didn't just cop out, but
All right, thank you.
we'll have to get an organized plan going forward
yeah.
with this. All righty.
Well, we've carried it over a couple of years now. so
Yeah, we have
it's
carried over a
a little
couple of
longer.
years and it's, but we haven't identified, you know what, we're just being prudent. We haven't identified a perfect recipient yet. So, all righty. Well, with that, the work session is now closed. And we will go into, let's see, we'll come back at 7 PM. So I hope you all will be back for our regular meeting. Good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock and I'd like to call the May 22nd regular meeting of the Staunton City Council to order. Please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome, everybody. I'm glad to see you all here. Tonight's invocation will be my honor. So at last council meeting, we recognized the lifetime of service given by a member of our community. It was a moving experience and one that reminded us all of the deep impact made by those who dedicate themselves to the good of others. Many of us here felt a profound sense of gratitude for such selfless service. This week, we acknowledge National EMS Week, an annual week-long celebration recognizing the hard work and dedication of emergency medical services professionals who provide critical pre-hospital care. Additionally, I want to note that last week marked National Police Week, a time to honor and remember officers who died in the line of duty. As we approach Memorial Day this Monday, we extend that gratitude to a broader and more solemn sacrifice. We honor the men and women who gave their lives in service to our country, those who laid down everything to protect the ideals we hold dear, freedom, justice, and equality. Their sacrifice continues to echo through the lives of families and communities who carry the weight of that loss. I'm grateful to all citizens of this country and particularly residents of this community who respond with selfless actions in the aid of others. In that same spirit of service, I invite each of us to consider how we might give of ourselves in small ways and large for the good of our neighbors and for our wider community. Often it is the smallest acts of kindness that ripple out in ways we may never see, but that matter deeply. Let us now take a moment to center ourselves. Join in prayer if you wish. Creator God, as we gather to discuss the matters before us, we ask for wisdom and guidance. Help us to work together with unity, compassion, and a spirit of service. May our actions be grounded in respect for one another, and may our decisions reflect a commitment to justice, peace, and the common good. May we be used as instruments of your love and light here and beyond this room. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all very much. This evening, we have two proclamations that I'm excited to share. The first is for Juneteenth, and I will go ahead and read this proclamation. Alice, would you like to read this one since you're going to be there? If you'd like to. All righty, great. Counselor Woods is going to be reading this. She's going to be making remarks at the Juneteenth celebration next month. So thank you, Counselor Woods.
City of Staunton, Virginia, proclamation Juneteenth, June 19, 2025. Whereas it is well documented that Africans were enslaved and forcibly brought to a land that would later become the United States, beginning in the early 1600s and continuing for over 200 years, becoming the main cause of the Civil War. And whereas although President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was issued on January 1st, 1863, in Texas, many slaveholders continued to enslave Black people after the announcement. And whereas on June 19, 1865, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, with news that the Civil War had ended. And whereas African Americans who had been enslaved celebrated June 19th, also known as Emancipation Day, Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Juneteenth, Independence Day, and Black Independence Day, as a symbolic date representing African American freedom. And whereas Juneteenth also serves as a reminder of the work yet to come that will be necessary in order to ensure a more equitable world for future generations. And whereas Juneteenth has been celebrated by Texans since 1866, it became a Virginia state and federal holiday in 2021. And whereas Stanton City Council recognizes that the observance of the end of American slavery is a part of the history and heritage of the United States and acknowledges the significance of Juneteenth as a federal, state, and citywide day of celebration. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by Stanton City Council that June 19th, 2025 is hereby recognized as Juneteenth in the city of Stanton, and council encourage all residents to join together in celebration and solidarity. It urges all residents to raise their own awareness of the significance of this celebration in African American history and in the heritage of our nation and city.
Thank you. Yeah.
In witness whereof,
Yeah, I think you can leave that part.
Michelle has
Yeah.
set her hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed, adopted this 22nd day
Yeah.
of May 2025. Signed, Michelle D. Edwards, Mayor.
Thank you for reading that, Councilwoman Edwards. And who is here to accept this proclamation?
Want to do it?
Yeah.
Got it?
You ready to go?
You got
How hard it is to do all those whereases and thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Good evening, council members and community members that are here present tonight. On behalf of the Stanton branch of the NAACP and the countless individuals who have worked tirelessly for justice and equity, I am deeply honored to accept this proclamation recognizing Juneteenth. Juneteenth is more than just a date in history. It's a celebration of resilience, a reminder of the long and ongoing struggle for freedom, and a call for us to continue the work of building a more just society. We honor the legacy of our ancestors whose strength brought us to this moment. We affirm the commitment and the fight for civil rights, economic equity, and social justice for all. I want to thank City Council for their recognition and for standing with us in marking this important date. Let this proclamation not only reflect remembrance, but also serve as a promise that our shared future will be guided by truth, inclusion, and equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brass. And who did you bring with you this evening is there anyone else you would like to?
I would like to acknowledge my son, Emmanuel Chapman.
Good evening. Welcome.
Nadia Ware, who is the Vice President of the NAACP, and Susan Venable, who is the Assistant Secretary of the NAACP.
Wonderful. Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
coming and being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. All righty. All right, a few more whereases. I know, right? It's hard. All right, we have another proclamation this evening marking LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Excuse me, I have to get ready. The Shenandoah LGBTQ Center. Whereas our nation was founded on the principle of equal rights for all people, but the fulfillment of this promise has been long in coming for many Americans. And whereas the historical riot at Stonewall in New York City on June 28, 1969, is recognized as the beginning of the modern day LGBTQ plus civil rights movement, and as a result, June has been celebrated as LGBTQ plus Pride Month nationwide for over 50 years. And whereas everyone should be able to live without fear of prejudice, discrimination, violence, and hatred based on race, ethnicity, religion, class, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, mental, or physical disability, and whereas the fabric of our community is strengthened when we center the values of equity, justice, diversity, acceptance, inclusion, and kindness, not only during this month of recognition, but throughout the year. And whereas Staunton has a diverse LGBTQ plus community and is committed to uplifting the voices and dignity for all people in the community. And whereas the Shenandoah LGBTQ Center of Staunton, Virginia was established in July 2018 by Christopher Wood to address the unique challenges faced by the rural LGBTQ plus community, strengthening it throughout advocacy, education programs, and safe spaces. And whereas, consistent with the efforts of the center, the city of Staunton strives to be a community where everyone is celebrated for our differences, rather than limited by what might divide us. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by Staunton City Council that the month of June 2025 is hereby designated as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the city of Staunton, and council honors the Shenandoah LGBTQ Center and their work to serve the LGBTQ plus community, encourages the citizens of Staunton to celebrate our diverse community, and join in celebrating the resiliency of LGBTQ plus people of all ages. Who is here tonight to accept the proclamation on behalf of the, good evening. Is this Dr. Reed? Yes. Wonderful. Very glad to have you here this evening. Let me go ahead and give this to you. I said you look wonderful. You look wonderful as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Edwards, City Council members, and all who are present tonight. It is with deep gratitude and pride that I accept this proclamation. And on behalf of the Shenandoah LGBTQ Center, please accept our appreciation for this recognition of a month that is so important to many in our Staunton community. This proclamation is more than just a gesture. It is a powerful acknowledgement that LGBTQ plus people are an essential, vibrant part of Staunton's past, present, and future. It signals to our youth, our elders, our families, and our neighbors that who they are matters and that they are seen, valued, and protected here. Pride began as a protest. It continues today as a celebration, yes, but also as a reminder that full equality and inclusivity remain goals that we must actively pursue together. For many in our community, visibility has never been guaranteed, safety isn't always certain, and acceptance has often come at a cost. That's why moments like this matter. In a time when LGBTQ plus rights are being challenged across the country, proclamations like this one help to ensure our local communities remain spaces of belonging, resilience, and hope, and reaffirm commitments to active allyship in our community. At the Shenandoah LGBTQ Center, we work every day to build spaces where people can live openly, authentically, and safely. Spaces where they don't just survive, but they thrive. That work is made possible through our incredible staff and leadership, as well as partnerships with leaders like you, with local organizations, and with the neighbors who show up for each other. We thank you for your commitment to inclusion and for the visibility that you have created for our community. We invite everyone in Staunton to remember our history, come together in joy, and celebrate Pride Month not just with rainbow flags and merchandise, but with actions that make this city more just, more welcoming, and more loving for all. I am proud to be a resident of the city of Staunton, and I'm also so proud to be part of the LGBTQ plus community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All righty. Moving on to a mayor's report, I always want to give a shout out to the library. I attended a library advisory board meeting last week and learned that the summer reading program is launching on May 30th. It's going to be a celebration at Gypsy Hill Park from 1 to 3. The Hot Mamas will be playing, and the Hot Mamas will be playing, and there will be kids' activities. There will be food and drink for sale. So please go and enjoy the activities, and you can sign up for the summer reading program while you're there, or you can do it online. I also want to mention that the library will be closed this Sunday, and it will be closed on Sundays throughout the summer, reopening right after Labor Day in September. I wanted to mention that Councilwoman Woods and I attended a meeting for local government officials at Augusta Health. And we are occasionally invited for updates on the hospital and its activities and programs. And this time we were invited to hear about possible changes to Medicaid funding in the federal budget and what a $715 million, no, it was $1 billion cut to Medicaid beneficiaries would have as an effect on our local hospital. And what that would also look like for our community. And I encourage everyone to follow Medicaid funding as it goes through the federal budget process. And that is all. I did go to see Spider-Man today. He just graduated from his EMS program. He's going to be an EMT. So Spider-Man flew into Augusta Health and landed in his medical helicopter and was celebrated by the EMT staff and had Smiley's ice cream and just enjoyed celebrating Spider-Man. So we may see him in a new role. I don't think he will be anonymous as an EMT, however. So that was a lot of fun. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I
Councilor
just
Woods.
wanted
Yes,
to
ma'am.
add to what you said about Augusta Health. They will be having a ribbon cutting on Thursday, June 12th at 4 p.m. for the Augusta Health Mobile Medical Unit. So if anyone wants to see it and, go for the ribbon cutting because it is exciting. It gives them more opportunity to go out in our communities to serve our folks, our citizens that wouldn't normally have regular physicians or place to go for medical services. So it is great. So I hope to see some of you all there as I already have it on my calendar.
Good. Thank you for reminding everybody that. It is billion. I looked it up. I was like, what?
I'll just share that the Friday after our last meeting, our Assistant City Manager, Ms. Kaufman, and I spent the day in Richmond at Virginia First Cities annual meeting. Just so you know, it's a coalition of sister cities that advocates for increased support and better policies from the state while sharing best practices among its members. And a lot of the material presentations on the day focused on trying to plan for what to expect from the changes happening at a federal level for the state of Virginia. But it was just really good to meet other elected officials and other staff from other cities across the state, just to hear some of the things that they're dealing with, some shared, some similar, some not so similar. So it was good.
Yeah, thank you. Would anyone else like to share anything this evening?
I'll just share that I participated in the letter carriers food drive on May 10th. Volunteers help the mail carriers to pick up the food so they're not so overwhelmed by picking up those bags of food in addition to their regular duties. But it was fun to drive in the neighborhoods and almost like a
Easter egg hunt.
Easter egg hunt, yes, finding all the bundles of food next to the mailboxes, but there were great participation and it's a great cause. So I was pleased to participate in that. I also was at the groundbreaking at Staunton Crossing for the new Columbia Gas Building on May 9th. And very exciting start to see the interior part of that property being developed for the first time. And was at the Economic Development Authority meeting this morning to hear that we are getting more inquiries and many inquiries about from other businesses who are interested in that property. So exciting prospects there.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
It is not too late to sign up for Clean the Bay Day on June 7th. Contact the city if you're interested in cleaning up our waterways.
And with it, the 28th, they asked for people to sign up by the 28th, I think.
And
you.
which department do you call Willow, Miss Hughes?
I'll
can
look
call
it up
this-
and I'll say something when I speak.
That would be great. Thank you. That's
Not sure
teamwork.
either.
Teamwork. Yeah.
Look it up.
Teamwork makes the dream work. All righty then, we will move on to item A, the consent agenda. Per procedure, memorandum number 14 is the policy of City Council to have routine, non-controversial items placed on a consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be voted on in one motion. If separate discussion of an item is requested by any member of council, that item shall be removed and considered separately at the end of the regular meeting agenda. Do any council members wish to remove any items from the consent agenda to be placed at the end of the regular meeting agenda for separate consideration? Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor Edwards,
Yes, Counselor Woods.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second that.
Any further discussion? Mr. Kesker, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Kesker. Item B is a public hearing for an ordinance to amend the FY 2025 budget ordinance for the city of Staunton by adding budget amendment number 4. Ms. Beauregard.
Trustee Moyers, Chief Finance Officer, will walk through this item, and we've only had 4 budget amendments this fiscal year. Our last one.
Right.
Hopefully.
Oh, okay, darn.
There's
Okay.
still time.
Well,
yeah.
even if it's 5, that's pretty good. So-
Good
So
evening,
this-
Ms. Moyers.
This budget amendment totals
Mhm.
5,147,343, like you said. Right after my summary of this, we will conduct a public hearing as required. That public hearing was advertised in the newsletter on May 14th. It will come back to council at the next meeting, which is June 26th, for consideration. There will be no action taken tonight. So I'm going to walk through the details. It might be a little painful, but I feel like it's important to you. It's going to be on page 90 if you're following along on your tablets. So the general fund portion is 1,230,998, and it's made up of the following: $3,000 GIS software grant, $4,275 grant from the risk management group, $13,688 in additional Library of Virginia funding, $1,640 for insurance recovery in the judicial area, $3,231 is the PSAP Education Program grant, $582, and then another $1,233 for insurance recoveries in the public safety area. The heat grant for $3,692. VRSA safety funds, $4,982. And a insurance recovery in the public works area for $7,925. The Forest Sustainability Award for $12,500 in the Parks and Rec area. And then the last item is the appropriation of the crossing sales for $1,174,250, with $30,000 of that being designated for the Arcadia contribution, and the remaining amount will be transferred into the CIP fund. The CIP fund appropriation totals $1,144,250, and that is the transfer that is coming in from the general fund. $35,000 of that will be for the economic development website that was not funded in the FY 26 budget. And the remaining $1,109,250 will go into the city's new infrastructure CIP account. The grant fund is an appropriation of $3,069 for the law enforcement grant. The HUD fund totals $1,095,414, with $755,646 being prior year appropriations and $328,268 for this year's appropriation. There is also a small transfer from the general fund of $11,500 to cover salaries not covered by the HUD grant. Blue Ridge Court Services totals $91,962. It's a $20,000 grant from Augusta Health. $86,360 for the Maury Recovery Court. And the rest are adjustments to their current grants. The sewer fund and the stormwater fund, these are just reappropriations of the Cole Avenue project, the storm restoration and the sewer. They are appropriated in 24, but did not get encumbered by June 30th. So we're just reappropriating them in 25. That is $346,175 for the sewer portion and $1,070,280 for the stormwater portion, with SLAF funding, the SLAF grant funding, $727,800, and the remaining coming from the fund balance. And then we move on to the education funds. Overall, it's an appropriation of $165,195. $41,260 is a school improvement grant. $50,000 is a extended school year grant that they received. And then a $435 donation to their equity. That's their Kindness Matters Fund. They had an insurance recovery of $73,500. I believe that is for a chiller that went bad, and we have insurance that covers that. The next section is just closing out some of the old CIP accounts. And then down at the bottom, you'll see that we're closing out the Shelburne renovation project and furniture, with a majority of that money going to buy the op center that they bought recently at the Evers property. And then the rest will be rolled into their undesignated fund. And that concludes everything that I had to report. Do you have any questions, or we can move on to the public hearing?
We'll go ahead and open the public hearing then. In a moment, I will open up the public hearing. This is a time that council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about the specific topic on the agenda. We ask that you please give your name, your address, and then keep your remarks at 5 minutes or less. When you reach the 5-minute time limit, I will let you know that your time limit has expired. For our Zoom participants, please raise your hand now if you wish to speak on this particular public hearing. If you raise your hand during this public hearing, you will also be able to raise your hand during the city council meeting for other public hearings and matters of the public. And please keep your comments to 5 minutes as well. Once everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity, I will then close the public hearing. I will now open the public hearing, so if you wish to speak, please approach the podium and we will alternate between individuals physically present and those that have their hands raised by the Zoom platform. Again, this is a public hearing for item B only, and if you're interested in speaking on this topic, please feel free to come to the podium and share your concerns. Mr. Kesker, does anyone have their hand raised?
No, ma'am, we have no hands raised.
Righty, well, if we have no one wishing to speak, this public hearing is now closed. Is there any other discussion from City Council? Any questions for us? Now, you said we're bringing this back, so we don't need to vote on this
No
right now.
motion necessary.
No
You
motion
will-
necessary.
This will be on consent for the June
Got it.
26th meeting.
Perfect. All righty then. So item C is a consideration of resolution adding Highland County to the Central Shenandoah Valley Office on Youth's Virginia Juvenile Community Crime Control Act efforts. Ms. Beauregard.
So John Blair's actually going to address this item tonight.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Blair.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Before you tonight, just to give you a little background, in 1995, the Commonwealth enacted the Virginia Juvenile Community Crime Control Act. And this was for programs such as monitoring, but also it was for classes such as anger management and various other alternatives to confinement sentences for juveniles. In 2000, city combined with Waynesboro and Augusta, their offices on youth, to combine their efforts into one program. and it's worked well for the past 25 years. Highland County, which is a bit more isolated than Staunton, does not have these programs available, though they've had to return. I spoke with Ms. Newman this afternoon for approximately 10 years. Every year they've had to return their VJ-CCA funds. And so they've asked, and the state has recommended, that Highland be allowed to combine their efforts with Staunton, Augusta, and Waynesboro. Their funding would then come towards us. I asked Ms. Newman, she said it's approximately $7,000 a year. There will be no cost to Staunton, Augusta, or Waynesboro, nor diminishment of services. The money would just come to enhance the programs that are offered. But it gives the juvenile judge in Highland County the opportunity to use some of these sentencing alternatives that our Office on Youth administers. And so before you tonight is a resolution that would allow Highland County to combine its efforts with Staunton, Augusta County, and Waynesboro in the VJ-CCA administration.
Excellent. Are there any members? Questions for Mr. Blair?
I'll just share that we had it meets every 2 months, but we had our Regional Youth Commission meeting yesterday in Waynesboro, and this topic was discussed. And as Mr. Blair said, Ms. Newman, she said it would provide additional services to our area and serve Highland County better.
Highland, yeah. Sounds like a pretty easy decision.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Blair. All righty, well, I'll entertain a motion then to adopt the resolution.
Mayor Edwards,
Counselor Campbell.
I move to adopt the resolution adding Highland County to the Regional Virginia Juvenile Community Crime Control Act efforts as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Counselor Oberholzer has second. Is there any further discussion? And then Mr. Kessicker, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kessicker. Before I go to item D, I wanted to recognize our sheriff is here this evening. Thank you for always being a faithful attendee at our meetings. Good evening, Sheriff. Item D, authorization of application for the Economic Mobility and Opportunity Special Assistance Grant through the International City County Management Association. Ms. Beauregard.
Okay, I'm going to present this item, but I have friends with me this evening.
You have a posse
I
here.
have,
Yeah.
Ms. DeMayo and Ms. Blythe are here from Economic Development, and Ms. Joyce from Community Development / Housing. And so we're all kind of in this together. So I'm going to describe what this is, and we'll try to answer any questions.
Okay.
I hope you also will find this to be an exciting opportunity. You've heard a lot of good news tonight. So to explain what this is, we all know Staunton is experiencing meaningful growth in business, investment, and job creation. However, many of our residents do struggle and continue to face persistent barriers to accessing these opportunities. And to bridge this gap, staff is proposing the creation of a special assistant for economic mobility within the city manager's office. And the role will focus on ensuring that all Staunton residents can participate in and benefit from the city's economic growth by integrating workforce, housing, and wraparound solutions into local government strategies. And simply put, economic mobility is creating opportunities to make it possible for all residents to move up the economic ladder and lead healthy, prosperous lives. So how are we going to do this? The International City County Management Association announced an opportunity for local governments to apply for a grant to fund an economic mobility and opportunity special assistant for 30 months. ICMA will award funds for this position to 15 local governments through a competitive application process. In Staunton, we would envision this individual working with our economic development and community development departments on issues related to housing and workforce development. This position would be required to report directly to the city manager, a requirement of the grant. If awarded this grant, it will fund the full salary of this position for 30 months, up to $250,000 over a 30-month period. Additionally, the grant would fund wraparound services for the position, including relocation, professional development, coaching, technical assistance, and local collaboration efforts up to $100,000 over the 30-month period. If awarded the grant for this position, the city would be required to cover all expenses related to the position's benefits and health insurance. The grant application is due on May 30th, which is why we're here before you this evening, and local governments are anticipated to be selected in June with a hiring target of fall 2025. So the purpose of this would be to design and implement data-driven, equity-focused strategies that improve household-level economic outcomes across Staunton, complementing the city's traditional economic development work. Some of the key responsibilities could include aligning workforce development and affordable housing investments, establishing cross-sector partnerships with employers, schools, and nonprofits, using data to track and guide economic mobility strategies by neighborhood, and elevating the voices of residents in economic policymaking. So just a few potential outcome deliverables. This is hardly an inclusive list, but just a few examples. For instance, an initiative around housing in the workforce pipeline could link affordable housing residents with job training and employer connections, and measurable outcomes could be number of residents placed in jobs and reducing employer turnover. There could be an economic mobility dashboard developed that would launch real-time tracking of household income, job access, and housing cost, and that could be public data to guide policy and funding. And then another example is an employer-assisted housing program, which would incentivize local employers to invest in workforce housing. And that would be measured by how many employees gain housing support and improve retention. So some of the potential benefits could be reducing workforce shortages by addressing barriers like housing, childcare, and transportation, increasing access to living wage jobs and career pathways for all residents, strengthening social and economic equity across neighborhoods, and leveraging additional state, federal, and philanthropic funding, and enhancing Staunton's competitiveness as an inclusive, forward-thinking community. This proposal also aligns nicely with your priorities, such as seeking and applying for grant opportunities, focusing on economic development and on affordable housing and self-sufficiency, and the desire to see outcomes and measures. It will also complement and provide additional resources and focus to several recommendations and actions put forth by the DEI Commission, including developing the Staunton Equity Network of interconnected community organizations, service providers, businesses, and other stakeholders, and fostering collaboration and coordination between local programs and services providers that focus on resilience and self-sufficiency of our residents. So in conclusion, the special assistant will ensure that Staunton's economic development benefits everyone, not just by creating jobs, but by connecting residents to them. And it represents a bold, practical step toward inclusive growth and long-term prosperity. As I mentioned, I have economic development here this evening and our housing planner, and we'll be happy to try to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Yes. I had a question about the dashboard, and this is a very minor detail, but making people's income public on a dashboard.
We don't have any detail. I mean,
Oh, okay.
That's just an
It
example.
just jumped out
I
at me.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, there's
But
lots of different,
I don't
this
know.
position could be that kind of person who is
Who
being
does
the
all of these
repository
things.
for this data.
Yeah.
And so that's just one example
Okay.
of, so that none of these details are worked
All
out.
right.
These were just hypothetical
it.
examples of what the possibilities could be. Yep.
It's very exciting, and I'd read about it before, and having somebody to come in and sort of take all those things that staff wants to do, but doesn't have the bandwidth to really take on themselves, and then to coordinate with other agencies. I mean, it's an exciting opportunity, and there's really no reason not to go forward with this grant, in my opinion.
Just curious, if successful, is the hiring of this individual up to the locality, or is the
Yeah.
ICMA involved in the?
So it is up to the locality. We would have to put a job description together. We would have to decide on the salary level.
Yeah.
So it is up to us. I do believe they would provide some assistance if we asked for some assistance in that area, but it would be up to us. And we would have to find them office space. I mean, everything that
Right.
anybody who works here would have to have, would be the responsibility of the city.
Right.
Do you anticipate any challenges finding people with the requisite experience?
That is a great
and
question.
Talents and interest?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, we haven't put together a job
Right.
description or even looked at one, so.
But the mission itself is
Right.
totally worth.
I don't know. Yeah.
And to be clear, this program doesn't provide any direct subsidies to people to get housing or to get
No.
jobs. It creates a framework to help them be successful in
Right.
those areas.
It's literally another resource for the city, another person who actually will focus on this. Whereas right now we have people like the ones behind me who focus on many, many things. And so
Right.
this actually allows
Right.
us to have a very distinct focus on economic mobility, working with the departments that are sitting behind me.
Right.
Yeah, as if you say, if we have concrete ways to measure the success, I'm all for
Yeah,
it.
and this person would be responsible for, would be part of their, what they would be doing is coming up with those metrics, helping develop ways in which we, have that data available to share with you all in the community. And that would be definitely a large portion of their job. I mean, are we even being successful is what we're doing, making a difference
Right.
and moving the needle. And the only way we'll know that is if we have the data behind it.
Ms. Beauregard, do you know if this is the first time this grant funding has been available?
I think it is,
Yeah,
because I've
okay.
been a member of ICMA for a really long time and I don't remember, and it was a private
Oh, okay.
donation.
Huh.
I think it was privately
Right.
donated. This ICMA has lost a lot of federal funding and they are struggling
Mhm.
really with basically the operations of just the
Mhm.
organization right now.
Right.
So this was a different source and
Okay.
I believe this is the first time they've offered something like this.
It's innovative.
So we're going to try.
Yeah, no,
I think
you're
we have a
gonna-
good case.
I think you do have a
Yeah.
good case.
So, and it is due at the end of next week. So
Right.
we'll be working through it pretty quickly from here on out.
I don't have any questions at all.
I think it's a
Seems
great
that-
idea.
Opportunity,
Worth a try.
It's
and
worth a
it's paying
try.
for the salary.
Quick
and
turnaround.
all.
Yeah, very quick.
So how much do you anticipate that our part would be?
That will depend on the salary and we can, if we win the award, we'll calculate all of that.
Right.
And we'll let you know what that is. We'll have to come up with those funds.
Right.
It'll depend on the healthcare plan they choose. There's a lot of
Right.
factors
But it
that.
seems like the
come into
lion's
that.
share is taken care of by the
Yes,
grant.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
That, I mean,
Which
'cause
is
for a single
significant.
person, that's pretty
Yeah.
big chunk of change right here. All right. Well, thank you very much. If there are no more questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck to everybody.
Yeah.
Don't pull any all-nighters like you're used to doing when writing grants, but good luck. Look forward to seeing how this works out. And we do have a chance. It's because we're a magical city.
Yeah.
We need a motion, I think, right?
Do we need a motion? Okay,
Yes,
I'll
we
now entertain a
do.
motion.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir. Counselor Overholzer.
I move that City Council authorize staff to apply for the Economic Mobility and Opportunity Special Assistance Grant through the International City County Management Association, and if awarded, identify the local share to cover expenses not supported by the grant.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Counselor Park. Any further discussion about this grant opportunity? Mr. Kessiker, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Overholtzer,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Kessiker. Goodness, we're already up to matters from the city manager.
Okay. I found the Clean the Bay Day
All
post on
right.
Facebook, the
Well done.
watershed awareness. So Willow and Hunter posted this, or I think Josh reposted it. And if you find that on Facebook, it's called City of Staunton Watershed Awareness. There is a link to register for the Clean the Bay, and you do have to register by May 28th. The only other announcement I have, and some of this was touched on, Memorial Day is on Monday. So that means City of Staunton offices are closed, facilities and offices. If you have trash collection on Monday, it will be picked up on Wednesday, the 28th. Downtown Central Business District will have collection on Tuesday, May 27th, and on Wednesday, May 28th, with normal pickup following that. Recycling Center will be closed Monday and will open up again on Tuesday. Will open on Tuesday, May 27th. I believe the library was already mentioned. They
Yes,
will be
ma'am.
closed starting Sunday for the season and also Monday for Memorial Day. And Gypsy Hill Park, the pool will be open Saturday and it also will be open Monday, both pools.
Hooray.
So, but it's not going to be great weather. So, because I think the low is going to be 48. And that's all I have this evening. If you like cold pools, then
We're
go
gonna
this
be
week.
optimistic
Just
on that
fine.
one. Thank you, Miss Beauregard. All righty. That'll be great. I hope the kids get out there and have some fun. Where are we now? I think we are up to matters from the public. This part of City Council's agenda is entitled Matters from the Public. It is a time that council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about a wide variety of subjects. A copy of the Stanton City Council's Matters from the Public rules are available in paper form at the clerk's desk and online on the City of Stanton's webpage. You are asked to familiarize yourself with those rules before commenting. Please come to the podium or begin your call, identify yourself, and complete your remarks within 5 minutes. As a reminder, this is a time for council to listen. If you would like an answer to a question or a follow-up to your comment, please speak with the city manager, Leslie Beauregard, after the meeting. Would anybody like to speak at Matters from the Public? Please approach the podium. Mr. Kessinger, does anyone have their hand raised online?
No, ma'am, we have no hands raised.
Going once. Mr. Kessinger, is there anybody with their hand raised?
No, ma'am.
Oh, my. This meeting of the Stanton City Council is now adjourned.